Okay, hello everybody. I am Michelle Smith with Z&B Consulting, and I am so excited to have you here today. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I am a coach who helps people really figure out what it is that they want to do and blend their life with their business and provide service to the world. In your handout, you will see some more information about myself, so I won't take too much time talking about that now. And I want to welcome one of our guests today, Mary. Introduce yourself to everyone, please.
Hi, I am Mary, and I am a LinkedIn expert. I am very happy to say that my clients love me, but I am also respected by other LinkedIn experts. I'm listed in a book of LinkedIn experts to follow that was made by one of the LinkedIn gurus in the UK. So I love that, and that's what I help people with. I help individuals, I help companies, and nonprofits, amazingly enough, have no idea the amazing power behind LinkedIn in finding people like followers and donors and board members.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, I love when we talked about that last time. And Mary and I have known each other, gosh, for years and are great power partners because we do serve the same kinds of people, individuals, corporations, nonprofits, and it's nice to work together. And for those of you noticing any weirdness on my computer screen, I apologize. I do need to be putting a phone call into Dell, but you should be able to still see most of the video and the audio should be coming across okay. But if you're seeing something weird, it's probably the computer on my end. So I've been using the B of Z&B's laptop until I can get a phone call into Dell, and he left before I remembered it was an issue. So it happens when you start something the first day after being on vacation from the break. But this is the time that people need to be planning because it's the start of the year. And I didn't want to delay that for people any further. So thank you all for being here. I did put in the chat a link to the handout. So the handout is there, and it's the same handout we're going to use for the next few days. And if you look into it, you'll be able to see what we're going to cover in the 4 days of the webinar. So today is the day where we're going to focus on reflecting on the past. What's happened recently that we want to use? It's so important to reflect on the past because that is the information that helps us be able to make better informed decisions for the future, which then is day 2. Day 2 is when we start looking at the future. What is it that we're wanting? What do we want to see happening? And then on day 3, we take that plan and we figure out what can we do to make sure that we're successful. And we're going to look at some things to help ensure that our plan becomes successful on day 3. And day 4, I put in as an extra day this time to have for some Q&A so that anyone who hasn't had a chance maybe to come to some of the different days or has some questions or hasn't had a chance to be sending in homework or responses, they can get on day 4 if they're available and be able to get their questions answered. And if you're not able to be here on day 4 and you do have some questions, you can email those to me too, and I will go ahead and get those answered. So that being said, we are going to move right on to day 1. And what we're going to talk about today is a couple things. One is, what are we leaving behind from the past? And what are we taking with us from the future? And so those are the things we're going to really think about today. And in each of these days of the webinar, I'm going to give you some time to actually, I'm going to pause and let you write some of those things down, because when you do, that way you don't have to be like, oh gosh, am I going to have time when I rush off of this to make dinner and everything else and get that done? It's actually one of the reasons Mary came today, because I believe you told me, Mary, if you don't come, it might not get done, right? So I'm glad to have Mary here for that. And so I'm going to give you time in a second to think about these things. But what I first want to tell you about is the bottom of your handout here. And it says areas to think about. So when you're thinking about what sorts of things you're going to leave behind and what sorts of things you're going to take with you, you're going to think about different areas of things. So go ahead and write these down in your handout. The first one is going to be revenue and expenses. So when you're thinking about what to leave behind, what to take forward, think about that in terms of revenue and expenses. I'll give you an example. I actually was speaking last Friday at a group, and those of you who have heard me speak before in person, you've probably recall that I usually have a bunch of nice little branded handouts that I come with that are printed in color, and I make sure that people have things to write these things on. Well, as I was reflecting on what went well and what didn't go well in past years, I kind of realized that number one, that's a costly expense to my bottom line. And number two, a lot of times people don't necessarily use that. So when I was thinking about what to leave behind and what to take with, I took with the ability for people to have these handouts, and I left behind the fact that I was actually printing them myself and paying for that expense. So anyone who may have wanted some more detailed handouts and some more detailed information, they were invited to come to this webinar this week so that they could hear me talk even further about things, and so that they could interact with other people and talk through some of this, because in the 20-minute talk, I didn't have time to do all that. So I used that example when I was speaking because that is something I intentionally chose to leave behind, but I did choose to take with me the ability for people to still have access to those resources because they are really good and valuable for people. So that had to do with the revenue and expense side of my business. Another thing, number two, is going to be services. So when you're thinking about what to leave behind and what to take with you, think about the services that you are currently providing. Are they all really fueling your soul? Are they ones that you really enjoy? Are they things that are truly needed? As we offer different services, it's good to think through all those things and to think, is this really something that I should continue doing? And throughout the years, it's been 10 years now since I've been doing my coaching business, and 10 years since I've been doing this webinar and this training here. And there have been different services that have come and gone. I actually recently stopped a coaching club program that I had done for years. And that coaching club program, I had gotten up to the 4.0 version of it because I kept enhancing it, and it was very effective. As I started moving forward, though, and my life started changing and my business started changing, I started reflecting on, is this still something I enjoy? Is this still something that's a need? And I kind of took that away. So that is a good example of how services might shift. That being said, I did realize that there is still a need for people to have that group program. So I will be relaunching a new version of a group program at the beginning of February. And how I did that was by really thinking back on past years, what went well and what didn't go well in terms of what clients really resonated with, and in terms of what really resonates and is in alignment with me and my joys and my passions and my business. And thinking through all that and taking time to think through it and put that intentional time aside, I was able to come up with an updated, totally new group program that I will be launching in February. The third thing you're going to think about is going to be networking. That's what the N is for on the sheet. And when you think about networking, you want to think about the places that you go and the actions that you take. So I have a free webinar on networking, and it really takes you through the steps of what to do before, during, and after you go networking. And what I find when people go through that training is sometimes they realize they've been networking in the places that aren't really getting them results. Or they'll realize they're networking in the right places, but they're not taking the right steps before, during, and after to get the results that they need. So when you're looking at those things, you want to really take time to make sure that that they are all in alignment. So when you're thinking about what to leave behind, what to take with you, think about networking. Are there some places that maybe you shouldn't go to anymore? Are there some places that are working really well? Are there some things you're doing when you go networking that you maybe shouldn't do anymore? Like, for instance, going and not even taking time to think about who might be there or what you're going to say or what you're going to do, or not having things with you to give to other people or show to other people. Are you going to leave that behind? And that leads us very well into number 4, which is H is for habit. what habits are you currently doing that aren't serving you, that you're going to leave behind? And what habits are you doing that are serving you well, that you're going to make sure to take with you moving forward? One of the habits that I built into place, not so much last year, but the year before, that served me really well. And I kind of got away from it last year, which stinks. But it was making sure every morning that I get up and I take time to be quiet and still and meditate and really think about, where is God leading me and where does he want me to spend my time that day? And how can I use my gifts to be helpful in the world? And so when I've had very great times during that year that my business was very successful because of taking that time to be still. And last year was pretty busy. For those of you who don't know, and you can read it in my bio, but not only do I run my own coaching and consulting business, but last year I started working for a nonprofit as well. And with the work for that nonprofit, it was great because it was totally in alignment with what I do. But that meant I now had to figure out, how am I blending my business with the nonprofit and with my life. So that meant that certain things had to go to the back burner. That was right after the time of moving into a short sale home that we just spent our third Christmas in. So those were all great things that took up a lot of my time. So things had to come out because we only have so much time in the day, right? And one of those things, unfortunately, that came out was that great habit that I have. So what I'm going to be taking with me into this new year is that habit. And I'm going to start building that into place again. The last thing, number 5, is people. I mentioned I've been in my business for 10 years, and there are some people like Mary who were around at the very start of my business, and she's someone that I've continued to take with me. There's great synergy and partnership between the two of us, and ways that we can work together to make a difference in the world. And there's other people that I met maybe at the same time that they don't serve my business anymore. They're not in alignment with what I'm doing, and there's just not a mesh anymore. So those people I've left behind. So you want to think about that with people. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing or a good thing, or they're bad people or good people. It has nothing to do about bad and good. It really has to do with each individual person's growths and priorities and where they're at. And as each of us change through the years, are those things still in alignment? That's really what that's all about. So I'm going to give you a second right now to take some time to think in those different areas about what you're leaving behind and what you're taking with you. And then I will come back. But I'd like you to make sure that you have time to do these things while we're on the webinar right here. So I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to come back so that you can think about those things. Sound good, Mare? All right. I will be back in 10 minutes while you fill out your worksheet, and then we will wrap up and end a little early today. I'll talk about the homework. And so in 10 minutes, I will be back.
I won't need 10.
All right. So you holler. What was that?
Did you already pause the recording?
No, I did not. Hold on one second. Let me pause. Mary is a pro. She does this all the time. So she doesn't need the full 10 minutes, which is cool. I think it just lets me stop, which is fine. So so that's okay. Mary, when you are done, just shout and we will continue moving forward. Sound good? Or do you want to do it afterwards and I'll continue?
I can do it afterwards so that this recording can be short for the people that are coming behind.
Perfect. Mary too does webinars like this, and she knows we're always thinking of our peeps together. So yeah, so Mary will take the time later. But if you though are watching this at home, you're going to want to pause right now because you are not going to want to listen to what I have to say next before you take time to answer those questions. So take a second, pause the recording, and fill out on the worksheet what you're leaving behind and what you're taking with you. And for those of you who are like, oh, my printer's having issues, I couldn't print it out, there's this thing called paper and pen, the back of the napkin, find one of those and write on that. The questions are, what are you leaving behind and what are you taking with you? Okay, so now I'm assuming you've taken time to pause that, and now you're back. And so we're going to talk about the homework. And I built homework into each of the days of this webinar so that you can interact with me and you can get feedback and you can process. And that's that accountability part to say, yes, I did this. And I know the clients that I've had and people who come on the webinar who do the homework, they really get so much more out of it because they're taking that step to engage. So your handout has what the 2 questions are for homework. There's actually 1 question and 1 bonus activity. So the question is, what ahas came up for you regarding your reflections on the past? And then the bonus is, if you want to, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but in December, I did a webinar called Celebrate Your Year. And that really took you deep into looking into the past. So it was a 3-day webinar, but I recorded a shortened 15-minute version of the recording that talks you through the handout. So there is a link in your handout to that. And if you would like to do that, there's also a link on the page that has the handout. There's a link to go to the Kickstart Your Year program. And if you want to do that, it would take about an hour to watch that 15-minute video and then to answer the questions in the handout. And for people who go really quick, it might not even take you an hour. People who take a little longer, maybe it takes you longer. It really depends on each person and what they do. But if you want to have a chance to think deeper about next year, that is a great activity. So check that out. That being said, I will see you guys back tomorrow at the same time, 4:30. And what we're going to do tomorrow is that's when we're going to start looking ahead. And you'll see on the handout, there's some fill in the blanks. Not going to tell you what those are. You got to come tomorrow to find that out. And but you have a great night. Mary, anything you want to add before we wrap up here?
Leaving things behind is useful.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to admit that some things just need to be left.
Yes.
It opens doors amazingly. 2 years ago, 3 years, whenever it was, I left behind helping people in all of the socials and focused on LinkedIn, and it opened so many more doors to me.
I love it. I love it.
Leaving things behind and not worry about it too much.
Yeah, that is such a great example. And I was talking the other day when I did the training too. Another example I gave is one of the habits I'm leaving behind is helping everybody with everything. Like that's, it's hard when you're someone like myself and Mary that knows so much. It's easy to just, let me do this. And I've really been making an intentional practice of stopping and saying, okay, this is the part that has to do with me. This is my role. This is my responsibility. Now it's time for me to step away, and who gets the ball passed to them? And so that's one of the things that I intentionally am leaving behind, because like Mary said, it's what's going to be so freeing, because by keeping that with me, it's taking away the time I have to just be peaceful and to just sit, which is a big part of, little spoiler for tomorrow, one of the things we're going to talk about is your intention. And that's a big part of my intention for this upcoming year, is to have more time to be peaceful and to have more time to just rest and enjoy fun times with family and friends. So thank you for sharing that, Mary. And we will see everybody tomorrow. Stop the recording.